Mighty Morphin Power Rangers The Fighting Edition is the last, or at least it was the last game, released in the Mighty Morphin saga before the franchise would go CEO. And it certainly went out with a bang. Released in 1995, exclusively for the Super Nintendo, if you couldn't guess from the title, Power Rangers The Fighting Edition is your traditional tournament fighter, where two players battle out head-to-head in multiple rounds using punches, kicks, combos, and of course, special moves to get that coveted KO. But more importantly, the bragging rights that follow, which I have never had. But that ends today. And in the 90s, you had to have them, as the fighting game genre was exploding, and a lot of popular franchises wanted a piece of that pie. But one slice certainly wasn't going to fill up a heavy hitter like Power Rangers, with the Fighting Edition being the fourth game in the series to give it a go. Begging the question, how can it stand out among the plethora of fighters when it already has to stand out among its own series? Especially since the Rangers' previous outings did bring some interesting ideas to the table, even if they weren't always executed to their fullest. Now, I've actually already covered all of them in their own reviews if you want a deeper dive, but the quick TLDR is that both the Game Gear games basically combine fighting game mechanics with your standard side-scroller mechanics. In the single player at least. Having you knock down mini foes, with the boss battles being the standard fight you'd expect from the genre, as you take on the monster as both the Rangers and the Zords. And it works surprisingly well. Honestly, both games are hidden gems, definitely worth your time. The Genesis version, on the other hand, also uses the first as a Ranger, second as a Zord mechanic. Again, story mode only. But let's just say it doesn't go nearly as well. It's far from a gem, let alone a hidden one. So, what does Fighting Edition do? Well, two things. First, it drops the Rangers altogether. Fights take place exclusively in the big ring, Zords and monsters only. And second, well, we're gonna get to that as it's kinda big. After what is easily the best rendition, yes, I said the best rendition of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in any game ever. Afterwards, we find that the game offers three modes of play: story mode, first mode, and trial mode. And obviously, at least for non-hardcore fighting game fans, the best place to start learning the game is obviously the story. Doubly so if you don't have a second player on hand. In typical Power Rangers fashion, you play as the Rangers as you beat down Lord Zedd's evil forces, one monster at a time. Though, exclusively playing as the Zords this time around means that you have a much more limited choice in playable characters. Which makes sense. About as much as, Lord Zedd not just stomping on the Rangers' houses. Featuring 8 playable characters, 9 if you count the incredibly broken hidden character, the roster feels a tad small, even for the time. Doubly so if you compare it to previous Power Ranger rosters. But in its defense, Fighting Edition is more about quality over quantity, as most of the Rangers in the older games were really just recolors with minor changes. Think if Street Fighter had like 30 Kens, or Mortal Kombat. Shots fired! Psst. Fighting Edition actually just saves all its recolors for the Command Center stage, which it does use a lot. Thankfully, all the fighters here feel very unique. Lipstick-Dra can double jump, Goldar can hover in the air, Zedd can teleport, and the Shogun Zord is just so large and powerful that it can literally backhand foes across the stage. Oh my god, that is so satisfying. Except for when it happens to me. But I digress. Despite such a small cast of characters, the problem here is that the story mode limits you to only 2 of them: the Thunder Megazord and the Mega Tiger Zord. And look, I get it. It's the campaign. We're playing as the Rangers, the good guys. We can't be letting the monsters pick up a W. Except that doesn't explain why we can't play as the Ninja Megazord or the Shogun Zord. Plus, and I get that this is a Season 2 or Season 3 or movie Power Rangers game, but including the OG Megazord and Dragonzord as characters would have been fire. Aw, come on, missed opportunity, especially with this game's visuals. And while Battle for the Grid could certainly contest this, I'd still say that the Fighting Edition is the best looking Power Ranger game of them all. With its large, colorful, and detailed sprites, epic moves, and fluid animations, this game simply looks amazing. It's more phenomenal. And just like the series it's based on, it sounds amazing too, with fast-paced, rockin' tracks bringing energy to every single battle. Though, if I had to put any complaints out there about it at all, it would be that they reused the main theme a bit too often, as it's actually used in all the Command Center levels. You know, the ones with the recolors? That we will see at least 4 times in the story mode. As the Mega Tiger or Thunder Megazord, you still have to fight the other Zords, including a mirror match. So again, kinda begs the question as to why the other Zords aren't playable, or there's no arcade mode. But that's not to say you're completely without options here. Now, obviously, there is the traditional verse mode. You and a friend can face off in a standard one-on-one, but unfortunately, you gotta have a second player for that mode. You can't just pick a computer character to practice against. Like if you really want to try out a different character or learn how to fight against a specific opponent, you're kinda out of luck. Though the campaign is pretty easy, so that's not really necessary unless you're like the hardcore type. The next closest thing would be the trial mode, which sort of offers what the story mode doesn't. Instead, you select your character and an AI opponent is selected, followed by a few but very important differences that really affect the gameplay. First off, this mode is basically a giant gauntlet. You're going to be going up against foe after foe after foe as your health gradually decreases, with it only being slightly replenished between opponents, meaning you'll be entering later stages with a handicap. But arguably, more important is the match count. Where in the normal verse mode and the story mode, you have to beat your opponent in the typical best 2 out of 3 match. In trial mode, however, it's one and done, which actually kind of hurts the combat's main gimmick, the energy bar. The other feature that I mentioned early on that really helps this game stand out among the crowd. Sitting just below these massive profile pictures that, yes, you can turn off in the options, sits a very unconventional energy bar that seems like it's always moving, whether you're doing anything or not. It's definitely not your traditional energy bar, that's to be sure. Now, as I said, Fighting Edition is your traditional 1v1 fighter. Jump is up, back is block, each of the face buttons uses a different attack like punch or weapon strike, and of course, utilizing the correct button combos will unleash a super move. Though they don't all have a quarter circle forward for scrubs like me, but you know, hey, that's what move lists are for. And off-screen training montages. Cue the music. Fine, I guess I'm pushing my luck. Now, what makes this really interesting is that you can fire off a special whenever you please. The energy bar at the bottom is not an inhibitor. Instead, it actually represents more of a power gauge. Using the Thunder Megazord's projectile as our example, firing it at any point will just shoot a small, weak little burst. But if you launch your attack at the peak of the bar, you'll get a much stronger blast. But more importantly, it'll cause the bar to level up, which continues throughout the next round in a full set. So you can kind of see how 1-round sets in the trial mode is a bit counteractive to this mechanic. Because after you level up your power meter 3 times, it'll fill with lightning. During which, all of your specials will be supercharged for a limited time and you'll have access to your ultimate attack. Which I could never pull off, cause I am a scrub. Ugh. Okay, you know what? That's it. Screw the morals, it's cheating time! But even a complete noob like me can see just how much depth this mechanic adds, giving players an extra goal to strive for in fights, as well as the need to pay attention to either player's energy bar, as it couldn't tell when a special move is coming. Will they try to fire off a special when the bar caps off to level it up? Should I block that? Counter it, punish it. I think you get the idea, especially if you are big into the fighting game genre. Though sadly, for those of you who do tout themselves as fighting game vets, due to my aforementioned scrubbiness, I can't really tell you how balanced this game is. Though, since it never really caught on, or at least you don't see it getting played at EVO or anything like that, it probably isn't. Or who knows, maybe it is, and just being a licensed game that is essentially for children just wasn't able to break through the steep competition of the time. Who really knows? But what I do know is that the hidden character is completely unbalanced and super busted. That, and that Power Rangers The Fighting Edition is a gorgeous looking game with a kick-ass soundtrack that is a genuinely fun time with a pretty low bar for entry. Perfect for fans of the series and younger kids. Except that, due to the whole license thing, it has never seen re-release. So unless the Power Rangers get their own Cowabunga collection someday, this one is unfortunately stuck on the SNES, though it is worth checking out if you get the chance.
Yes! I did it! I won! Victory is mine! Raw skill, baby! All me! 100% pro gamer! Right here, in your face! Screw the morals the show taught me! It's cheating time! Oh boy.